Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 250, One Trick Phony. The episode begins with Ash and the gang making their way to Blackthorn City as usual, when Ash encounters a female trainer who comes up to him and challenges him to a battle. Upon seeing her, Brock tries to flirt with her, but even though he wasn't dragged off by Misty this time, he was ignored, as the trainer was too focused on battling Ash, who accepted her challenge, eager to get some training in before his gym battle, as he sent out his Pikachu and she sent out her Smoochum, which was nicknamed Josephine. The trainer starts off by having her Smoochum use Sweet Kiss, but Pikachu simply jumps over the Smoochum to avoid. The trainer then orders Smoochum to use several more Sweet Kisses, as Ash instructs Pikachu to wait for Smoochum to approach and then sneak away at the last second with agility. Pikachu does this, making Smoochum fall to the ground when it tried to jump towards Pikachu, only to find that Pikachu had left the spot. Smoochum was confused at Pikachu seemingly being gone, as it had used agility to go away. So it tried to look around for it, and it was caught off guard when Pikachu then used Quick Attack, slamming it from behind. Pikachu then goes for a Thunderbolt in an attempt to end off the battle. And although it doesn't end up fainting the Smoochum, it injures it enough to the point where the girl Ash was battling forfeited the match, admitting that she knew that her Smoochum was too exhausted, and she didn't want to keep putting it in harm's way to the point where it would faint. Brock respected the girl for this, as he fell more in love with her, as the girl recalled Smoochum into its Pokeball. Upon seeing the girl return the Smoochum to the Pokeball, though, Ash suggested that Smoochum was probably healed up by now, so they should have another battle and see who was truly stronger. However, the girl rebutted that even if Smoochum was better, she herself was tired and out of energy as well, so she wasn't up for another battle. Misty and Brock congratulate Ash on the technical win, but Ash was still disappointed about the kind of bullshit win, or at least that's how he viewed it, and he wanted to go have some more battles where he could actually prove himself and get genuine practice for the Blackthorn Gym. To try and quell Ash's disappointment, the girl suggests that Ash should go to the Battle Park, a place for trainers like Ash who loved battles and were skilled, explaining that at the Battle Park, you could have free battles with almost any Pokemon, since it was a facility operated by professional trainers that supplied almost every Pokemon in Kanto and Johto to the park for trainers to battle. Also adding that battling against all these strong, unique Pokemon of many different varieties would give a trainer like Ash plenty of experience, which he desperately wanted. So, Ash happily accepted to go to the Battle Park, as the girl told him the directions, and then left. Misty, much like Ash, was excited to see all the different varieties of Pokemon and their strength, while Brock was excited to go, hoping that some of the strong trainers there would be pretty girls. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was actually at the Battle Park, working as employees as they were polishing some of the Pokeballs containing the Battle Park's Pokemon. They had debated stealing the Pokemon many times, but James was the one who kept them all in check, suggesting that they could probably get more money from doing all this work than they would if they ended up getting caught trying to steal the Pokeballs. Just then, the park warden, and also Team Rocket's manager at the park, entered the polishing room and suggested that Team Rocket clean up and go home for the day, since the park was closed. Team Rocket were relieved, as they were tired of working, but unfortunately for them, the manager quickly corrected himself, as he remembered that he had to go to the local store nearby to buy some supplies for the park. So he gives them his Pokeballs that he was supposed to polish, as since he had to go to the store, he wouldn't have time to finish polishing them in his own time. Team Rocket screamed in anger at essentially being turned into this manager's slaves, having to do his fair share of the work themselves. But the manager simply laughs at Team Rocket's anger, and counters that they had nothing to be angry about, as polishing Pokeballs was easy, while making his way into the town from how far off the park was the hard job. He then left the room to go shopping for the supplies, as Jessie slammed her fists on the table in pure rage at the fact that they had to do a low-level grunt job. Meowth looked in the box of Pokeballs and noticed that these ones were special park balls, so they looked a little different. So this led Meowth to try and convince James and Jessie that instead of working the job, they should steal all the Pokeballs and profit off of them, leading James to remind Meowth, like he had before, that they would likely get more money from working this job than they would selling Pokeballs, although Meowth doubted this, stating his belief that the manager would likely try to fuck them over, so they should do something else to make money, even if it wasn't a Pokeball stealing scam, just something. Just then, a customer came in for some reason, since the manager hadn't locked the door to Team Rocket's room, and Jessie informs him that the place was closed for the day, so they couldn't be of any assistance. The customer rebuttals that he didn't need the park or any access to it. He simply just needed Jessie and James, knowing that they were the Pokeball polishers, to polish his Pokeball for him. Team Rocket explained that they didn't do that specific polishing at the park, and only polish Pokeballs that originated at the park. The customer then pulls out some money to bribe Team Rocket, as Team Rocket take the money, but still deny, as he rants and rants and rants about how he had come so far to this park just to get his Pokeball polished, and now no one would even do it. He was ranting so much that he forgot that he even gave Team Rocket some money, so Jessie proceeded to put it in her pocket and began to make her exit from the room so that the customer wouldn't grow suspicious of his money being gone and be able to confront them about it. Meowth happily followed Jessie out of the room, excited that at least Jessie was willing to make money through more unorthodox matters as opposed to just working their asses off. James ran out of the room as well, but not because he had had a change of heart. He simply wanted to chase after Jessie to get the customer's money back, after informing him that he had in fact lost his money, breaking him out of his rant. When James caught up to Meowth and Jessie and demanded that Jessie give the customer his money back, Jessie scolded him questioning why he cared so much about Team Rocket not stealing for once, leading James to restate again how he simply just didn't want to get fucking fired. Leading Jesse to rebuttal that Team Rocket definitely would get fired from this job if the customer attempted to inform their manager about Team Rocket's theft attempt, and scolded James even more for this, chasing him outside of the building and into some bushes in the process. Just then, Team Rocket heard Ash and the gang calling out for someone to let them into the park, as Ash and the gang had just arrived at the park gates. Upon hearing Ash and the gang's voices, Meowth got excited, claiming that it was the perfect time to take Pikachu, as there was no one else in the park, and Team Rocket could utilize the park Pokemon to their advantage to battle Pikachu. Unfortunately, Team Rocket then noticed that Ash and the gang were talking about how they thought that the park was actually closed, as no one was there to greet them, and they were about to leave. Disappointed that they hadn't found any workers, trainers, or Pokemon for that matter, this led Jessie to disguise herself as a gate attendee and go running up to the gate and welcome Ash and the gang to the park, explaining that it was never closed, open 24/7, even though that was an obvious lie. Ash was initially a little skeptical when a park attendee, quote-unquote, suddenly showed up, after Ash and the gang had already been shouting for one for quite some time, but he quickly got rid of his doubts and concerns as he just wanted to enter the park. So, Ash requests to register himself, Brock, and Misty for entry into the park, and Jessie accepts, taking them into the registration room, where James was waiting, also disguised as a gate attendee. However, when Ash requests to register him, Misty, and Brock in the park, and also requests that they pick their Pokemon from the park's roster, which was on the wall, which included rare mons such as a Gengar, a Misdreavus, Cubone, Kangaskhan, Chinchou, James unfortunately declined, stating that the park was too busy, so they didn't have room for 3 trainers to join, only 1. And also, not even that one trainer who could join could pick any of the park Pokemon and would have to use their own, since all the park Pokemon were already accounted for. Brock and Misty were fine with not joining, and allowed Ash to be the trainer to enter, although Ash barely even wanted to now, since he couldn't use any of the rare Pokemon at the park itself, that the park was known for. And he also pointed out that even though James had said that the park was busy, he didn't see any other trainers for him to even battle. Brock noticed this as well, and questioned James as to why the park seemed empty, leading James to realize the discrepancy in his own lie. He knew that he couldn't convince Ash and the gang that all of the trainers were simply just hiding away, so he proceeded to make up an excuse, stating that all of the Pokemon were on layaway. So essentially, the trainers had pre-registered themselves into the park, and also pre-registered some Pokemon, but they hadn't shown up yet. But since they'd pre-registered, Team Rocket couldn't give the Pokemon out to anyone else, or give out their spots in the park. Ash believed this lie, but questioned how he was supposed to battle anyone if none of the trainers were actually there, leading Team Rocket to claim that they had come up with something just in case there was ever only one person at the park, known as the Pokemon Potluck Grab Bag Course Challenge. Ash and the gang inquired as to what this challenge was, leading James to pull out a case from under the reception desk, which had 3 Pokeballs in it. Ash was intrigued as to how there were Pokeballs still available, as he thought they were all taken, so he inquires as to what was in these Pokeballs. James clarified that he didn't know. He just knew that they were strong, as they were reserved specifically for this challenge, not given out to any trainers. Jessie then corrects James, though, stating that these 3 Pokeballs actually were reserved for the 3 strongest trainers that had ever come to the battle park, but suddenly remembered that those 3 trainers were still in the park, so the park actually wasn't deserted after all. Ash and the gang were confused by the mixed messages they were getting. James was saying it was empty, Jessie was saying there was 3 of the strongest trainers in the park there. Regardless of the little discrepancies, though, Ash was desperate to battle, so he accepted the Pokemon Potluck Grab Bag Challenge, which was apparently to defeat the 3 strongest trainers in the battle park with their strongest Pokemon. With Ash now registered, Jessie took Ash to the huge entrance gates of the actual park beyond the registration area, and clarified that Brock and Misty could come as well, they just couldn't battle. She then insists that the other trainers would arrive soon, as she ran off, telling them to wait. Ash and the gang waited for way too long, though, so they decided to take matters into their own hands and look around the park for the 3 trainers. The park was huge, so this took a while, especially since there were so many potential battle arenas that could be used, so it took a long time to come across the trainers, but they eventually did. As a very excited Ash was greeted by Team Rocket in black leather jacket disguises and Meowth in his manager disguise from the last episode, or a few episodes ago, the Professor Oak competition one. They introduced themselves as the 3 strongest trainers at the park, and Ash decides to battle them just as he had planned. So yeah, this revealed essentially that Team Rocket's plan was to battle Ash and the gang with the strongest Pokemon in the battle park, which were the ones that the strongest trainers, quote-unquote, apparently owned, and they were hoping to be able to steal Pikachu if they were able to defeat Ash. James was set to be Ash's first opponent, as they both got ready to battle. However, Ash then remembered that there was no referee for the battle, and Team Rocket panicked at this, thinking that this would make Ash realize that the battle was a fraud, since there was no official referee. But thankfully, Brock just stepped in to do the reffing job, as he was a relatively experienced referee. With that decided, James picks out a Pokemon from the basket of the 3 strongest Pokemon in the park, and he ends up sending out a Venusaur, which Ash examines with his Pokedex. His Pokedex reminds him that Venusaur was a grass Pokemon, So Ash decided to use Cyndaquil since fire beats grass, which Misty thought was a great idea, as she sat by with Pikachu and Togepi watching the battle from a nearby water fountain. Jessie and Meowth were disappointed by Pikachu sitting out, and Ash using Cyndaquil, since that meant that they wouldn't have an opportunity to capture Pikachu right away. Although James was relatively pleased with the Venusaur, as he could still try and defeat Ash's Cyndaquil, and he knew that he was good with grass Pokemon since he had a Victory Bell. He must have forgotten that despite having a Victory Bell, he always lost though, as he had the Venusaur use Razor Leaf, but Cyndaquil dodges, and the leaves cut through trees, causing them to fall down instead. Ash, Misty, and Team Rocket were all extremely surprised by Venusaur's power, even though they knew that Venusaur was supposed to be one of the strongest Pokemon in the park. But James quickly got over his surprise so that he could continue the battle as he ordered the Venusaur to use Tackle. Cyndaquil jumped to the side to avoid it, but since he jumped too early, this allowed Venusaur to simply continue its tackle, changing its direction a little bit as it tackled Cyndaquil into a tree, making it very weak. Despite Cyndaquil already being weak, Venusaur didn't let up as it went for a Vine Whip. Cyndaquil was able to dodge this by jumping out of the way though, so this caused the Vine Whip to instead hit a tree, knocking it down. Venusaur tries again with a Vine Whip, but Cyndaquil dodged this one by jumping as well, and managed to get a tackle in on Venusaur. Since this tackle attack required Cyndaquil to get up close to Venusaur though, Venusaur took the opportunity to go for a third Vine Whip, which was able to knock Cyndaquil to the ground, allowing Venusaur to follow up with a Razor Leaf. But the Razor Leaves don't make contact, as Cyndaquil uses Smokescreen to block Venusaur's view and takes the opportunity to hide. James got confused, looking for where Cyndaquil went, noticing how Ash seemed to be using his own strategies that he would usually do with Weezing against him, but just then, the smoke cleared, and Cyndaquil snuck up on Venusaur using a Swift. With Venusaur injured from this attack, Cyndaquil took the opportunity to follow up with a Flamethrower. Venusaur was able to dodge the flamethrowers at first, but Cyndaquil merely just changed the flamethrower's direction and eventually hit Venusaur, hurting it badly since it was a fire-type move. James was getting a little concerned now, but Jessie and Meowth reassured him that he would be fine. With James now inspired again, he told Venusaur to show a grass-type's full potential with its most powerful move, being a Solar Beam, as Venusaur prepared to unleash it. Once the Solar Beam was prepared, Venusaur stood up on its hind legs and used a whole bunch of energy to unleash the Solar Beam. Ash quickly ordered Cyndaquil to counter the Solar Beam with Flamethrower, but the Solar Beam was too strong as it overpowered the Flamethrower as they collided, and also knocked Cyndaquil into a tree, knocking it out. Meaning James had won a battle for once, making him very happy. As Brock declared James the winner, and Ash recalled Cyndaquil. Team Rocket cheered with joy, and Ash congratulated Cyndaquil on his good work, but admitted that he should have looked out for the Solar Beam. Misty comforted Ash though, reminding him that it didn't really matter that he lost, because him experiencing the Solar Beam was good training for the Johto League, as likely a whole bunch of trainers there would use a powerful move like Solar Beam. And she also reminded Ash that he had 2 other chances to prove himself against these trainers, and wished him luck in the next battle. Ash got excited by this, and congratulated James on the great battle, as both of them prepared to send out their next Pokemon. With James declaring that he should obviously battle again, since he just won and was on a roll, but Meowth thought this wasn't fair, as he thought that they should all get a turn, and wanted it to be his turn next. While James and Meowth were arguing and distracted, Jessie decided to take the opportunity to battle, as she quickly took a ball from the case while James and Meowth weren't looking. James and Meowth eventually notice that one of the Pokeballs was gone, and get surprised and annoyed when they see what Jessie had sent out. A Charizard! Why were they annoyed? Well, they wished that they could have got a Pokemon that was that strong. But admitted that it would be weird to battle with a Pokemon that was their former enemy, as Ash used to have a Charizard. Despite Ash having a Charizard, this didn't stop him from using the Pokedex on it to refresh his memory, as Misty found some of the information on it interesting, since the Johto Pokedex had a little bit more information than the Kanto one, including how Charizard was a flying and fire type, as opposed to a dragon type, despite being a literal dragon. Ash then sent out his Tordal to battle Charizard, since water was strong against fire, but Jessie didn't care about this, as she thought that Charizard was so strong that it could do anything, especially under her training to boot, although Meowth doubted this, thinking that Jessie and Fire-type Pokemon would not mesh very well, because they were both known to be relatively angry. The battle then began, as Jessie, believing that Charizard was strong enough to use any move, ordered it to use Poison Sting. However, Charizard of course couldn't use Poison Sting, so nothing happened, as Charizard instead just looked at Jessie in confusion and almost face-faulted in pure bewilderment, leading Jessie to save herself from embarrassment by claiming that she was just used to battling with her Arbok, so she was just used to saying Poison Sting. With Charizard not doing any attack, this allowed Totodile to hit it with a water gun. James and Meowth got annoyed at Jessie for her incompetence with using the wrong attack, so Meowth tried to throw a guidebook to Jessie to help her out, insinuating she needed it to know which moves Charizard could learn, but Jessie simply rebutted that Charizard could learn any move with the exception of Poison Sting, and explained that Charizard hadn't used its full power yet, as she ordered it to use Dig. James and Meowth were not pleased by this, as they reminded Jessie that Charizard couldn't use Dig either, but somehow Charizard actually was able to use Dig, much to their surprise. However, the Dig proved to be pointless, apparently, as soon as Charizard emerged from underground, it simply just flew up into the air and did nothing. James and Meowth were about to scold Jessie again for doing a useless attack, but Ash thought that Jessie could have something up her sleeve, so he ordered Totodile to look out and dodge if necessary, and Totodile did have to dodge, as Charizard was then ordered to use an Iron Tail while up in the air. Totodile was able to evade the Iron Tail, but the sheer wind that was created by the huge tail of Charizard's caused a whirlwind that blew Totodile back, making Misty and Brock impressed at how Charizard was able to essentially use two moves at once, Iron Tail and Whirlwind. Charizard tries to use Iron Tail a bunch more times, but Totodile dodges each one and gets progressively closer to Charizard after each failed hit, allowing it to get really close and headbutt Charizard right in the face, causing Charizard to tumble over a little bit, but it gets back up very quickly. Ash then tells Totodile to use Scary Face to try and intimidate the Charizard, but Charizard wasn't intimidated, as Jessie simply ordered it to use an even scarier face, which essentially just brings them into a staring contest, and also brings Ash and Jessie into a Scary Face staring contest as well, to show their support for their Pokemon. The staring contest continues for a long while, until both Charizard and Totodile get too scared and collapse, although Totodile was able to quickly get back up and uses Water Gun on the fallen Charizard, leaving James and Meowth confused as to how a small guy like Totodile was able to get back up before Charizard. James and Meowth are even more surprised, though, when, after some thinking about what to do, Jessie orders Charizard to successfully dodge the Water Gun by flying up into the air, surprising Ash and Totodile as well, as everyone directs their attention to the air. Ash then stated aloud how frustrated he was that Charizard seemed to be doing everything except for fire attacks, since he believed that Totodile could handle the fire attacks, and this made Jessie scold herself for forgetting to use what Charizard was mostly known for, its fire attacks. She had ordered it to do pretty much everything else aside from those, so she finally tells Charizard to use a flamethrower. Ash tells Totodile to counter it with Water Gun, believing that Totodile could easily do this, but the flamethrower was too powerful, and it pushed through the Water Gun, therefore hitting Totodile and knocking it to the ground. Totodile didn't give up though, as it managed to get back up, but it took some time, so this allowed Jessie to prepare another flamethrower, which was now heading straight towards Totodile yet again. Totodile was able to dodge this time though, as it used another Water Gun, this time at the ground, to propel itself into the air, and once it was in the air, it struck Charizard with another Water Gun. And due to Charizard being caught off guard by this, it was severely weakened by it, and tries to fly up to attack Totodile, but it couldn't, as it was too weak and fainted, giving Ash the win, much to Ash's enjoyment and Jessie's annoyance. As Jessie claimed that Totodile using Water Gun to go up in the air was an unfair move, since Totodile couldn't fly naturally. But Brock didn't care about this, as he officially declared Ash the winner. As Jessie then recalls Charizard, James and Meowth didn't think that Jessie was capable of doing anything in battle, so they argued amongst the two of them once again to see who would go in for the third battle. But Jessie just used Meowth and James's argument to her advantage yet again, as she snuck into the Pokeball case and took the third one, sending out a Blastoise, as Ash used his Pokedex on it. James and Meowth were furious, as they were both about to reach for the Pokeball when Jessie grabbed it, and they were even more pissed off, especially Meowth, when Jessie, worried that she would embarrass herself if she lost the battle, ordered James and Meowth to prepare to steal a whole bunch of things and Pokeballs from the park if she lost, so that Team Rocket could at least make their escape with something, even if she failed to get Pikachu. James and Meowth didn't want to help, with Meowth complaining that he should have got to battle, instead of being forced to help out Jessie, because he hadn't battled yet, while James and Jessie had. But Jessie simply yells at Meowth and James, leading them to reluctantly oblige, as they plan to steal some shit. The battle was about to begin, as Jessie taunted Ash that she had a super strong Pokemon in Blastoise, as Ash and Misty realized that the three strongest Pokemon at the park were coincidentally the final evolutions of the three Kanto starter Pokemon. Ash wasn't intimidated by Blastoise whatsoever though, as he knew he had the perfect Pokemon to use, Pikachu. So he sent Pikachu out, which made Jessie a little nervous, even though she was excited to potentially be able to capture Pikachu now, as she knew that if she lost this battle, then she would be sent blasting off. She decided to concede to Meowth's original advice of using the guidebook to find out what moves Blastoise could learn, but when she ordered Meowth to get her the guidebook, she remembered that she had sent Meowth off to go steal some shit. So she just grabbed the guidebook on her own and looked through it, seeing what moves Blastoise could use. However, since Jessie was distracted by this left Blastoise vulnerable, so Pikachu was able to use agility to speed up and then hit Blastoise with a quick attack. Jessie stressed, looking for a way to counter the quick attack in the book, but she eventually settled on just using a body slam, since Blastoise was so big and it would be able to do a whole bunch of damage. However, the body slam missed, since Pikachu was able to dodge. Because of this dodging though, Pikachu had to slow down a little bit, which allowed Blastoise to go in for a headbutt, but Pikachu was able to avoid this as well, as it was able to speed back up quick, impressing Misty and Brock with the turnaround. Jessie knew that the agility was going to be a big problem, so she looked up in the guidebook a way to counter agility, and the guidebook suggested that special attacks be used as opposed to physical attacks, because special attacks could cover more long range. So, with that, Jessie orders Blastoise to use a bubble, but Pikachu was still too fast, and it dodged the bubble, and then used this speed to slam into Blastoise with yet another quick attack. Pikachu then tried to finish off the battle with a super effective Thunderbolt, but Blastoise would draw it into its shell to take no damage. Pikachu tried to find a way to get Blastoise to come out of its shell, but it suddenly did of its own volition, as it begun to spin around in its shell before popping out and using a charged up Hydro Pump, which hit Pikachu, even when he tried to avoid it by running around with agility. The attack was so strong that Pikachu was blasted into a tree, as Jessie happily congratulates Blastoise on its good work, instructing it to keep using a Hydro Pump, and it does, which keeps Pikachu pinned to the tree, unable to do anything. As Ash panics at this, he asks Misty and Brock for some help, and they suggest that although things seemed hopeless, Ash may be able to win if he managed to use Thunderbolt directly on the Hydro Pump, as the Hydro Pump would conduct electricity. So, when Blastoise fired another Hydro Pump, Pikachu used Thunderbolt right on the Hydro Pump, and it indeed conducted electricity, which, in turn, sent the Hydro Pump back at Blastoise while it was electrified, dealing Blastoise a lot of damage, and making it scream out in pain. Ash panicked a little bit, as Blastoise was somehow able to get back up, but he noticed that it was too weak to fire any more Hydro Pumps, so Ash had Pikachu use a Thunder on the ground, causing the ground to split, and hurting Blastoise even more, to the point where it got knocked out, falling on top of Jessie, since she had since run over to the Blastoise to make sure it was doing good, and she also ended up getting electrocuted by the Thunderbolt in the process. She angrily got back up, extremely bitchy from having lost the battle, and having been electrocuted and having Blastoise fall on her, so she calls Blastoise back, and instead sends out her Arbok, hoping it could finish off Ash and the gang. Yeah, I don't know about that. If Blastoise couldn't, I doubt your Arbok could. But regardless of this, she has Arbok use Poison Sting, heading for Pikachu, but fortunately, Pikachu was able to dodge it. Unfortunately, though, Pikachu was so focused on dodging that it didn't realize that it had maneuvered itself right underneath the Meowth balloon, which James and Meowth were now piloting. So this allowed Meowth to drop a little robot hand from the Meowth balloon and have it pick up Pikachu, and Meowth then proceeded to trap him in a little cage. Jessie was pleased to see Pikachu was taken, as she removed her disguise, as James and Meowth had, revealing themselves as Team Rocket. Jessie then questions if James and Meowth had stolen anything else, like she asked, and James revealed that they did. They had stolen every single park Pokemon, and had all the Pokeballs trapped in a net. Team Rocket then began to make their escape in the Meowth balloon, as Ash was in dismay at the fact that his Pikachu was taken, and he had thought that he'd been battling honorable trainers, but was instead just battling Team Rocket. Just then, the manager of the park from earlier, that gave Team Rocket all the Pokeballs to polish, returned from his shopping trip, and demanded that Team Rocket give the Pokeballs back. James was shocked to see the manager, not wanting to disappoint him, since he still wanted the job at the park, but Jessie reminds him that they didn't need the job anymore, as the Meowth balloon continues to fly away. However, Ash then takes action, along with Misty, as Ash sent out his Totodile, and Misty sent out her Politoed, and they were both commanded to do Water Gun. However, Politoed was too busy clapping and dancing around happily to do Water Gun, so this meant that only Totodile's Water Gun did anything, as it destroyed the cage that Pikachu was in, sending him flying out. And it also destroyed the arm that had pulled Pikachu up to the balloon in the first place, so Pikachu couldn't be recaptured. Team Rocket were confused by what had just happened, and they were even more confused as Pikachu jumped out of the Meowth balloon since it was free, back into Ash's arms. As for Misty, she was getting frustrated with Politoed, as it was still just clapping happily, but thankfully, when Misty ordered it to use Water Gun for a second time, Politoed actually obliged, poking a hole in the Meowth balloon with its Water Gun, and dropping the balloon down to the ground. The balloon ended up crashing into the woods, so Ash and the gang and the manager ran up to it and demanded the Pokeballs back. They all just quickly decided to go up to the Meowth balloon and grab the balls themselves, since Team Rocket were knocked down, but before they could grab them, Team Rocket managed to get back up and claimed that they weren't going to give the balls back without a fight. So, Team Rocket proceeded to let out the Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard from their Pokeballs and commanded them to attack, as they excitedly bragged about how powerful they were going to be with these three Mons on their side. However, the three Mons refused to attack Ash and the gang, and particularly the manager, as the manager explained the reason for this being that the park Pokemon were actually his in this case, and they were only supposed to listen to trainers who rented them out when they were actually in the battle park. But since they were now in the random forest, that meant that the Pokemon listened to him. So he ordered them to use Flamethrower on Charizard's case, Hydro Pump on Blastoise's case, and Solar Beam on Venusaur's case, which blasted Team Rocket off. As the warden laughs, Ash and the gang then thanked the manager, or warden, whatever you want to call him, and said goodbye to him as they left the battle park and continued on their way to Blackthorn City, with Misty and Brock admitting that although Ash didn't get to battle any actual trainers and was forced to just battle Team Rocket, at the end of the day, he still got some great practice for his last gym by going against the strong Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. Ash agreed, as he declared that thanks to this practice, he was now ready for his final battle to get the Blackthorn City badge. The episode then ends with Ash actually stating that he was somewhat impressed with Team Rocket for being able to command the Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur at all, leading Misty to glare at him and insist that he shouldn't compliment his enemies. Ash simply laughed at this, stating he was just fucking joking around and knew that Team Rocket sucked ass, and declared that if they tried to get the Blackthorn City gym badge, they would immediately fail. Which was definitely true.